We already understand that self-injury is a coping mechanism, but lots of people then struggle to understand why someone hurting their own body can actually make them feel better. And I think it's really helpful to have a sense of self-injury as something that has both physical and symbolic functions. So it makes someone feel better for both physiological reasons, in terms of things like transferring emotional pain to a physical wound that someone can look after and heal. The sense of sometimes physical pain can bring someone back into their body. So if they feel very disassociated, which can be a response to trauma, that can bring someone back, make them feel very connected. There's also, as we know, that when we're in pain, our body has its own sort of natural painkillers that are released that affect our mood and sort of alter our sense of how we are in ourselves. So there's some very direct physical reasons why hurting the body can make someone feel better. There's also lots of symbolic reasons as well, and I think to really understand that, we have to understand ourselves as embodied social beings. So we live in a world that just sees us as beings that have mental health and physical health, and the two things are completely separate. Whereas really our whole experience is an interconnection of the physical, the emotional, the social, the symbolic. And that's how we experience all kinds of things. So if we think about love and pain, they're also things that we feel in our bodies. Our sense of self isn't just a mental self, it's also very much connected to how we are physically. So of course hurting our body also affects all of these different elements, and many of the ways in which the physical body relates to the social, the symbolic, the emotional and so on, has been ritualised in religions, in cultural practices throughout the world. So there's this sense of, for example, in Christian tradition, self-flagellation, fasting, all kinds of practices that cause pain and injury to the body as a way of cleansing or purging or releasing or becoming clean again. And again, self-injury can function in exactly the same way for people. It can create all those sense of being free, of being clean, of self-punishment, of self-forgiveness and so on. It's also important to understand that very often self-injury can be a response to a situation where people feel powerless, where they have no control over their life or their body, and hurting their body can be their only sense of agency or sense of intervening in that difficult situation. And again, that's not something that's unique to the experience of self-injury. If we look throughout human history, people have used bodily protest in all kinds of different ways when they feel utterly powerless or trapped. So hunger strikes, within some of the detention centres for asylum seekers around the world, there have been protests where people have stopped eating, where they've sewed together their lips. We also see protest in prisons where people again refuse to wash or refuse to eat. So again, someone's last resort of agency and control and sense of having a voice, that something is wrong, that there is an injustice, that something is terribly oppressive, that sometimes people's only response can be to mark that on their body.